In this video, I'm going to be doing a review and raw demo of the Vail X Series tree saw, so you're going to want to stick around for this one. Before we get started, if this video helps you out, I just ask that you would please subscribe to the channel. So I'm going to start here at the front and then move my way to the back of the machine. So let's start out by talking about the blade and the teeth on this machine. Now this is going to be a 3/4 inch thick steel blade here on this machine. Now all of the Vail tree saws are going to have this 30-inch blade, and they're also all going to have the 10 teeth here on the blade. Now about these teeth, these are going to be the green teeth, and these are actually the wear sharp teeth. So what these are going to be 1 inch in diameter, carbide, self-sharpening teeth. Now what I mean by that is on these teeth, as you can see here, there is a concaved edge here to this tooth. So as this tooth goes about its life and it's cutting, so with that concavity, you're going to build up a beveled edge here on the outside, which is actually going to make these teeth sharper as you use them more and more. Now some other things about these teeth is they do have 3 lives to them. So what I mean by that is, as you can see here, we have some chip on top here. Now this happened whenever we were first using this machine. We got into a tree that we did not know had a T-post tangled up in it, and we actually did chip some of these teeth here and here. Now the good thing about these teeth is, like I said, they do have 3 lives. So basically they have 3 points at which you can turn these 120 degrees to get that to its next cutting surface. So whenever you are going to change these teeth out, or you need to switch to that surface, it's as easy as loosening off the nut here, as this bolt that you see sticking out is actually connected all the way through to the tooth itself. Now, one thing about this that I would always recommend when getting one of these saws brand new is the first thing that you should do is go ahead and take these teeth off, take all of your nuts off the back of these teeth and put anti-seize on these, just to make that easier for whenever you're having to do either a full tooth change or just a rotation. As we had found out whenever we were needing to do these rotation, since these are tightened down to 50 foot-pounds, and from the factory they don't necessarily have any anti-seize on them, whenever you're taking those off for the first time, if you're not careful, you can also have instances where you chip these teeth. So make sure that that's one of the first things you do when you get this thing home, is go ahead and put that anti-seize on these. And now from here, guys, we're going to move up and talk about the hydraulic motor. Before I show you the hydraulic motor, let's talk about a couple of the options here on this machine. For one, you are going to have a low flow and high flow option with the Vail X Series tree saw. On this machine here, we do have the high flow option, as we are on a John Deere 333G that is high flow compatible. Now you're also going to have 2 different options of the actual hydraulic motor, which is going to be either a high speed or a high torque option. Now these are going to be very important based on your application. For what we do in this area, we're mainly cutting 15-inch trees and less and doing a lot of vertical trimming. So we went with the high speed option here, as it seems to do great for those trimming applications and cutting through those smaller trees. Now if you're looking more into cutting harder woods, larger trees, this is what you're going to be doing all day long. I would highly suggest looking into that high torque motor, as it is built just a little stronger to be able to go through those harder woods and those larger trees. So to get to the hydraulic motor, you're simply just going to have to remove this cover. Now this is going to take 4 bolts. They are going to take a 9/16 socket to take those off, and then you can just simply lift off the cover here, and now you have full access to your hydraulic motor. Now a couple of things that we need to point out inside here is that you do know where your main hydraulic connections are that are coming all the way through the boom to the motor. That way you know if you have any issues, you see any oil leaking out of the front of this machine, you know those points where to check. And then also right down below here are smaller hose, as you can see coming out, that's going to go into the bottom back of the hydraulic motor. That is going to be your case drain. Now this is very important on these machines. A lot of people overlook the case drain, but it's very, very important that whenever we're talking about these high speed hydraulic motors, now this hydraulic motor is going to range from 1200 to 1900 RPMs. So guys, you're talking about a lot of oil moving, a lot of heat, and that oil does have to have a place to escape very quickly. And so that is why the case drain is included on these machines. And we'll talk about that a little more when we move to the hydraulics. Now, on this motor, At the bottom here, you are going to have your main bearing at the very bottom. It does have its own oil bath that uses 80-90 weight oil, which is just going to be one of your standard gear oils. Now, they say at 2,000 hours, you may need to check this oil and maybe even change it, but I'm telling you guys that if you do have to do that, you are going to have to remove the whole motor out of the machine to be able to change that oil bath. So as long as you're maintaining everything, I wouldn't worry too much about that, but just know that that is there. Now we'll go ahead and move back here and talk about our actuator. So before I get into the top of this actuator to show you that, let's talk about another feature and option on this machine. Now what we have here is actually going to be a pivoting head. This is going to have a full 180-degree motion here where we can either pivot this blade out to the right or in to the left, and that is going to allow you many different angles to be going in and cutting these trees. Now the Vail also is going to come in a fixed head option, and then if you look across other lineups and different other brands of tree saws, you may actually also see a swinging mechanism where your boom here actually swings. Now, I'd tell you that my preference on a machine like this 100% is going to be the pivoting head. And the reason for that being is that some people would say, no, we want that swing style head. But the thing to keep in mind here is that on this Vail, you do have this offset boom. As you see, I'm standing here all the way on the left-hand side of the machine, and this boom is offset over to the right. So you have to think about whenever you're running your machine, you're very easily able to swing this machine just from your joysticks inside the cab. But one thing that you get into if you don't have this pivoting head is it makes trimming trees a lot harder. It also makes a lot of cuts harder if you're trying to cut at an angle and cut a tree off flush if you have that angled branch, or if you're just trying to go up and down the side of the tree to get that clean cut. Without this pivoting head, you are not going to be able to do that. So guys, take it for what it's worth, but I would highly recommend that if you are looking into these machines, even though it may cost more to go with this pivoting head, I would definitely go with that, as you will definitely see the value and the versatility of this machine with that pivoting system. So to take this cover off, guys, once again, it's going to be 4 bolts with the 9/16 socket. Now, once you have this cover off and have this exposed, what we need to point out is this piece right here is going to be your pivoting actuator. Now, one of the main questions that is asked about this machine, or one of the concerns that Vail gets a lot of the time, is that a customer will get this machine home and they will try to pivot this head to make sure it works, and it is connected to your electric functions on your joystick. So you would assume that as long as the machine is on, you would be able to use that electric function to turn this head. And a lot of times you'll get in and it won't work. And the reason is that, as you can see here with this shield off, is that this is an electric over hydraulic actuator. So what you have to do first to be able to get this head to spin is you have to have your blade engaged to get that hydraulic flow sent to the actuator to be able to spin this head. Now, the way that works is, if we can see way back underneath inside here, is that we are going to have 2 solenoids in there that are plumbed to the hydraulic system. So as soon as the hydraulic flow is engaged to the blade, those solenoids will open, send hydraulic flow to this actuator, and then you're able to pivot this machine. So don't think if you get this machine home, you plug it in, you try to pivot the head and it's not working, that you have an issue. Make sure to get that blade spinning first and then try your pivot, and it should work for you. Now, one very interesting fact about this actuator is this is one of the most heavy built actuators on the market, as this actuator has a capacity of 100,000 pounds. So what that means is that right here you would think that you have 2 weakness points, as where this boom is bolted to the actuator and then to the hydraulic motor. A lot of times people think that the actuator is going to be your weak point, but that is not the case on this machine. So just keep that in mind, that if you are using this machine to dig down into the ground, maybe you're going to pop those trees up, you do not have to worry about damaging or ruining this actuator. For the most part, unless you're getting just a little too crazy, most of the time before you would ever damage this actuator, you would damage the blade first by bending it or causing some sort of harm there. So don't be afraid of using this machine to its full capability, as you can rest assured that your actuator is very heavily made. Another option that can be added to this machine is going to be the 5-gallon herbicide sprayer. So as we can see right here on the boom, we do have this covering over your nozzle. Now the nice thing about the positioning of this nozzle is that it is about halfway back on your boom. So right after you go through and were to cut those trees, you can go right over the top of it, hit your button in the cab and spray those trees, especially if they're going to be trees where you're going to see that growth from year in and year out. You want to make sure and get that killed off. This is going to be a nice option to have. Now this is going to be an available option on both the rotating head and the fixed head, and if you decided at the initial purchase that you did not want this option, but later you thought maybe it's a good idea, you can always go in and add this option to your machine. Now if you're putting this onto a fixed head, you're going to have to add the nozzle, the tank, and a wiring harness that'll go to your 3-pin connector. Now if you have the pivoting head, what you're going to have to add is the nozzle, the tank, and you'll have to add another connection into your 14-pin harness. So right here on top is going to be the fill for that herbicide, and as you can see, this can be confused, I guess, sometimes with a diesel fill, but this is going to be where your herbicide goes. So if you decide later on to add this herbicide tank to your machine, here is going to be your access point. Right here you're going to have these 4 bolts to take loose with a 3/4 inch ratchet, and then as you can see on top here, we have these 4 bolts on top, and as you can see, we already have the tank on this machine, but if you were adding this assembly, your tank, your pump, and your screen are going to come as one assembly mounted into a bracket. So when you remove this cover, you would just take your lid off, go ahead and feed that filler neck up through the hole, and then your bolts here on top are going to bolt right down into that bracket. And if you didn't have this tank option, there would be a cover there initially. So you would take the bolts out, take the cover off, slide the tank assembly in with the cap off, and then bolt that into place and put your cap back on. On the hydraulics of this machine, like we said, we have the high flow option. So as you're gonna see, we have our inlet and our return, and then we're also going to have our case drain. Now on a high flow machine, the case drain is required to make sure that you're able to get that fluid moved back to the machine when it's too hot or that engine is working, or that motor rather is working too hard. But it is also a suggested option on the low flow machines as well. Not required, but it is suggested just to make sure that you are being safe when using that machine. Now these are going to be your standard hookups here on the left hand side on this John Deere machine, and now also you can see this is where our 14-pin connector is going to be able to run that actuator for the swivel on this machine. And if we look down here at our hydraulics on the tree saw itself, one thing that you want to keep in mind is that you do have grease fittings on each one of these couplers. And the reason for that being is as we're moving this machine up and down, pivoting it forward and backward, those couplers do have to rotate. So a good rule of thumb is to make sure and grease those at least once a year, and if you're a heavy operator, maybe at least every 6 months. So another thing with the hydraulics is, as you notice right down here, we have another plate on this machine, and the reason why this was put in was so that the hydraulics can be changed to either the left hand side or the right hand side. So for instance, if you own a JCB machine, your hydraulics are going to be over here on the right hand side, and Vail has made sure to incorporate and make this machine very versatile where they can put those hydraulics on the right hand side. Now on whichever side you do not have your hydraulics, you can also open this plate up. That can be a clean out spot, as you can see in here we do have dust and debris, so from time to time it'd be a good idea to go ahead and open this up, clean this out, just for the cleanliness and the life of your machine. Now let's talk about the overall build of the machine, and we'll start here with the A-frame. Now as you can see guys, this is a very heavy A-frame protective unit here on the machine. Now this is going to start from the bottom to the top. It's going to be 83 inches tall. As you can see, this is made out of good heavy 1/2 inch steel here on these risers, and then you're going to have 2.5 inch tubing going all the way up to the point and down the other side, and then also with this sturdy point here in this stability point here in the middle. Notice they put in their X for the X Series. That's a nice touch as well. But one of the misconceptions with these frames is that they are going to be your pushing force for whenever you get that tree cut and you're ready to push it down. A lot of guys think they're going to use this to go ahead and rotate that machine forward and push with this A-frame. Now that is not the way that we want to go about pushing these trees, as this is meant as a protective surface here, or a protective mechanism for you in the cab. Now, if you notice how this is built, like we said, it's built in this A-frame, and this is done for a reason. And the reason that is because if we're cutting those trees and something were to start coming back towards us, the thing that you'll notice is with that A-frame being right in the middle, if a tree falls on you, it's going to fall one way or the other and make that tree lean away from the cab. So this is a very important design, very great feature here, which you're gonna see this a lot on different tree saws, but this A-frame is specifically a good design here. Now, another thing to point out with this design is, as you notice, we do have this mesh screen down here at the bottom. This screen is going to add superior protection. As you can see, as if we had this blade spun up here, it's going to catch a lot of that larger debris from going right back onto the cab. Now, not to say that you won't get smaller debris through here, but for your larger pieces, this mesh is going to stop that. Now, I talked a little bit about not pushing with our A-frame here, so let's talk about the right way to push those trees. Use your boom anywhere here on this frame, but we want to make sure that we're pushing with the boom here and not with the A-frame. Now, keep in mind that if you have a very, very small tree, you know, maybe we're talking those 6-inch trees, dead trees that are gonna be really easy to push over, then the A-frame will be okay. But for all of your larger trees, you're gonna wanna make sure that you are using either your boom or the blade in that rotated position. But whatever you do, guys, make sure that you are not using your motor housing here. Like we showed before, this is where our hydraulic motor is gonna be. This is gonna be, you know, a very, very important area to your machine. So you wanna make sure that we're not spinning this blade maybe to the right side and using the top of this housing. We do not wanna do that and having to cause any damage to your motor housing. I already hit on the offset of this boom, but let me expand a little bit more on that and tell you some of my personal experiences and why I would prefer this right-hand offset boom. Now, the biggest point of this is going to be visibility, as we know that whenever we're going into cutting trees or using any front attachment on a skid steer, that visibility is key. So with this head off to the right-hand side, as you can imagine, sitting in the cab here, you're gonna have a clear line of sight here, no matter which way your blade is turned. Now, some of the things about that is if we're going in and we're making that straight cut with these machines, we're gonna wanna cut, a general rule of thumb is from right to left. So with the left-hand side being open, we can start on this right-hand side and go into that tree, and you can imagine being in the cab, you can see that cut all the way through since you have this open line of sight here for those straight cuts. Now, the other big positive to this is going to be in the trimming part of this machine. So with that rotating head, whenever we're going to be doing those different trimming applications, once again, your visibility is huge here. So if we're trimming right in front of us, say we're wanting to go up a tree right there in front, the nice thing is that once we turn that blade to the inside, that blade is right there in your line of sight with that tree where you can see exactly what you're doing when going up that tree. Now, the thing is, there are a lot of different brands out there that have a lot of different opinions on this. Some have the boom right in the middle or in different places, but I'm telling you, with this boom to the right-hand side, when we're doing any of those trimming applications, the precision is a huge deal here. So when we're at that middle spot and we're going up that tree, we can see exactly what we're doing. And the other nice thing is when it is in the middle, with the way this blade spins, when we have it over here to the left, that blade is going to be spinning like this. So all of that debris is going to be shot away from you or towards the ground. And so for one, you can get very precise and see, and it's also going to protect you from shooting that material back into your windshield. Now, the positive here of being able to swing 180 degrees and go out to the right is we have to keep in mind that on our farm and ranch applications, a lot of the times what we're going to be doing here is maybe trimming roadways, pond dams, maybe we're clearing out different areas. So if we have that spun out to the right, and let's say that we have to be on that roadway, we're wanting to clear up those farm roads, we can have that machine spun out to the right. We can be on the right-hand side of the road where we need to be going along with traffic. We can be trimming those right along, not having to be down in the ditch. And then also with that spun out to the right, now your blade is going to be spinning backwards, throwing that material. And the good thing about this is that whenever you have this spun out to the right, your exit of that material is going to be to the right of your machine and not throwing that right back on you. So when we're clearing those roadways or pond dams, we can get right up next to the edge of the road or that bank on that dam, be able to clear those trees and be able to stay safe and balanced in our machine. So now let's talk a little bit about the specs and warranty on this machine. Now, we said this before, but from the bottom of the machine here to the top of the A-frame, you're looking at 83 inches. The length of this machine from the back of the edge to all the way to the front of the boom, you're going to be 79 inches long. Width, we're looking at 53 inches wide, and we're going to have a boom length here of 60 inches and then a total weight of 1,400 pounds. Now, warranty on these machines, you're gonna have a 12-month warranty on the hydraulic parts and a 36-month warranty on the frame and build of this machine. Now guys, here at the end, we are going to put in some footage of this machine in action, so make sure to stick around for that. And if you're also interested in buying one of these machines, make sure to check down in the description below, as we'll have a link there where you can get more information on that from us. And if you found this video helpful or you liked this video, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel, as that helps me out as well. And also guys, if you have any other questions or comments, make sure to leave those down in the comments section so I can get back to you. And if you need any parts for this machine or for your 333G or any other John Deere equipment, make sure to check out that link in the description for 27parts.com. And as always guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.
when Brent falls, he falls hard. The bigger they are, the harder they fall. Dude, I got me falling on camera.
Very graceful, very graceful.
Hey, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, baby.
Hey guys, make sure to check out this cool video and this one. Buy your parts right up here and subscribe right here.